All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. If you will all please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To America and to the republic for which it stands,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to call the roll as Janice's phone is creating a really bad recall. Who do I start with? Councilmember Atlan.
Here. I'm muting.
Councilmember Epperson.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Rhodes.
Here.
And Mayor Ratton is present. All right, I'm call for agenda approval.
Mayor, this is John.
Yes.
Two things I want to add: the emergency resolution for the OES 130 form, and to withdraw the Mule Creek State Prison presentation. That'll be April 21st.
Okay, so we are going to add one and remove item number 10. Is that correct?
Correct.
Item number 9.
Oh, 9, excuse me. Yes, item number 9.
I'm sorry, 9. Got it. Okay.
I move we accept the agenda as modified.
Yes. Moved. Dan.
We have a first and a second. I'll get a voice. We will do this by roll call. Those in favor, starting with Councilmember Atlan.
Aye.
Epperson?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rhodes? Aye. Mayor Ratton, aye. Motion carried. Okay, we have a presentation and announcements. We have the child abuse presentation monthly proclamation. John, do I need to read that into the record?
I believe you do.
Okay, here we go. Proclamation. Whereas children are vital to our county's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, as well as being our most vulnerable asset, and whereas all children deserve to have the safe, stable, nurturing homes and communities they need to foster their healthy growth and development, and whereas child abuse and neglect is a community responsibility affecting both the current and future quality of life of a community, and whereas the communities that provide parents with the social support, knowledge of parenting and child development, and concrete resources they need to cope with stress and nurture their children, ensure all children grow to their full potential, and whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships created among citizens, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Therefore, it is resolved by the City of Ione, by the City Council of Ione, County of Amador, State of California, and said council does hereby proclaim the month of April 2020 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and urge all citizens to use this time to reaffirm our dedication to preventing child abuse and neglect and protecting our community's children. And in witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Ione to be affixed to this 7th day of April 2020. We have someone's background noise. Can somebody please make sure their phone is muted? Thank you. Okay, so presentations completed. Do we have our city attorney on the line? Yes. Hello, Sophie. Hello. We're moving on to the consent calendar. Is there any items that anybody would like pulled from the consent calendar?
This is Dan. I do have one question. I was not present at the February 4th meeting, and I would like to abstain. I'm not sure if I can separate the two items, though. I would like to abstain for the February 4th, but vote in the affirmative for February 18th, if that's possible.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar with the vote.
Do I have a second?
Reed, second.
Go ahead.
Mayor,
Yeah, the
this
first
is,
and second. John, you have something to say?
yes, did we skip public comments?
Oh, I did. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I'll get this one of these days.
Oh, this is
Public
a tough
comment?
situation.
Remember, you have to unmute your phone before you talk.
Don't tell them that. Just go.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, I'm closing public comment. I have a first and a second on the consent calendar. We'll do a roll call of, what a vote. Atlin?
Yes.
Jefferson?
Abstain on the February 4th and aye on the 18th.
Got it. Reed?
Yes.
Rose? Ratton, aye. Moved. So moved. Moving on to the regular agenda. We have Senate Bill 1, SB1 Road Maintenance Project options for fiscal year 1920.
Madam Mayor, this is John Wanger. You can hear me, I'm assuming?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'll give a brief staff report. Back in 2017, the voters approved Senate Bill 1, which allocates certain amounts of money every year to the various agencies in the state. So far for 2019-20, the information we've been given by the state is City of Ione's allocation is $133,373. And part of the requirements for SB1 is that annually we have to designate what streets we're going to use the funds for. And back in May of 2019, an item was brought before the City Council that stated it was staff's recommendation to choose Fairway Drive, and paperwork had to be provided to the state, but the state's made it clear that changes can be made to that paperwork once it's filed. So the council said that they wanted a little bit more information on that. So back in October of 2019, the item was brought back to the City Council. And at that meeting, a list of projects was presented. And the council indicated that they wanted to do as much slurry sealing as possible with perhaps one paving job within that. But they had indicated that the overall project budget be at the $230,000 to $250,000 range. So following that, staff went back and looked at all the streets that were provided to the council at the October meeting. We overlaid on top of that the ultimately proposed sewer repair jobs, as well as we updated the unit costs for the various slurry seal and paving components. And what we did was we used the actual as-bid cost for the slurry seal project that was done last year. So what's happened is we have come up with a modified list that's attached to the staff report, and it has a listing of probably about a dozen streets under the slurry seal section, totaling a little over 1.5 million. And then there's a separate listing of streets that would need either reconstruction or overlay. And the total of that, again, that's close to a dozen streets, and that's at about $2.9 million. And that's included in the staff report. So based off of that, those streets that are listed in there are streets where sewer projects will not be taking place, are not scheduled to take place. And those are the streets that can be chosen for slurry seal and overlay. And we've looked at a variety of different things. As mentioned in the staff report, a lot of times when we try to pick projects to recommend for the council's consideration, we try to separate those into streets that are going to use like treatment. So for instance, we're going to try to group all the slurry seal projects together or all the paving projects together. And it's because two different contractors are providing those services when they're done. So in looking through this list, two things popped out. The first of which was back in 2015, we did a paving project and we included a portion of Sacramento Street between West Jackson and West Market as a bid alternate. And due to bid prices received at that time, that project wasn't done. That section of street wasn't done. But the plans and the specs for that project are actually completed, and they're just sitting on the shelf waiting to get done at this point in the game. And it's estimated that that section, and that would be the one paving section that staff would recommend, and that would cost approximately $83,000 based on estimates that we've made, which leaves about $147,000 if we assume that the overall budget was $230,000. It would leave $147,000 for slurry seal projects. And one of the streets that needs it the worst is Shakely Lane. And what staff has recommended in the staff report is to consider adding as much of Shakely Lane, starting at Preston Avenue and proceeding towards Fairway Drive, and get as much of that done as money could afford. We would actually go in and measure that and calculate it and come up with a set of plans that a contractor would bid on for that. But that's staff's recommendation based on the direction received back in October. The schedule, if the council provided direction on this tonight, would be over the course of the next month or so, we would do the bid documents for this, and then we would put this out to bid. Bids would most likely open up sometime in June, and then we would immediately proceed to get the work done probably in the early summer, being June and potentially July. So, and obviously a lot of that is dependent on a number of things, probably most obvious of which is the shelter in place and whether this is considered an essential service project or not. But that concludes the staff report, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the council have. And I'm going to put my phone on mute and just listen to questions and answer them as best as possible.
Council members, if you would please identify yourself before you make your question so that we know who's who for the record. Is there any council questions?
I do, if you want to. Well, let me unmute it. Stacy Rhodes here. I was at that meeting when we discussed the last thing about the roads. I was at the prior when I was upset that it was cost so much for Flory Seal because we could have money over. But that's kind of hindsight. I know a lot of contractors. One of them is actually on our list now. He's local, Amador County, the disabled vet. Most people know him. But the going rate, you can even ask the county that. The going rate to overlay is about $40 a mile. And I believe John Rankin can attest to this because when we were at the county together, they talked about their going rate. They figure it's $250,000 to overlay. So when we
Hey, Stacey, real quick, you're breaking up. I can barely make out what you're saying.
These contractors enough lead time to know kind of what's going on. So what I would, just to see if I'm right or wrong, was get the city to contact contractors and has a list of, possibly have them with Coastland and say what you want done, what his actual needs are, and then put it out to bid, because we are paying way off. That's my personal opinion. But like I said, I know a lot of these contractors, and what's that?
You're breaking up.
Stacy, you're breaking up on the recording, and maybe where you're sitting.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying was there's a local contractor. He's now, Janice does have his number. He's a disabled vet, so we get kind of kudos.
Can you move over to the other side of the room, out of the corner, so that you're not in over there by the door, so that you get a better, I think you might get a better feed. He's going out the door.
That better? Yeah.
So far, keep talking.
Okay, so what I was saying is I believe we way overpaid when we did the slurry seal, like probably 3 times. The going rate overlay was about $1 million a mile. That's what the county pays. That's what private people pay, like Amador, I believe it's about $250,000 to do like a 4-inch overlay to almost a mile. We do have a contractor on the list, a local contractor, a disabled vet, who gives us to hire this guy. But I think what we should do is at least get that guy involved and say what it really should cost. Because I remember before Coastland came up with some numbers, and they were supposedly way off. I don't think they were way off. I think they were probably more accurate. The problem was we went out literally within a month to try and sign a contract. Got to give asphalt guys at least 6 months. You can't just call them in July and have them be there in August kind of thing. It don't work. And that's why I wanted to roll it over last year. We have time to do it right this time, but if you don't have it like in within like a month, you should roll it over again. Because the more you wait on asphalt companies, they jack the prices up. That's why it costs so much to seal that. So, and my point is we could have paid a lot of road for what we slurry sealed. So, and as far as fairway, a lot of that road is compaction problems for the underground workings. The pipes and the manholes are all off grade. So that was just kind of a screw up from the construction of it. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that one. Huge now.
Anyone else have any comments?
Hello, this is Council Member Atlin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to remind everybody that Caltrans is scheduled to do Main Street next year. So I'm not sure if these, East Main items are part of what Caltrans will do or not. I don't really have a preference on what's done. I'd like to get as much done as possible. With regards to what Council Member Rhodes said, we can approve these streets that want to be done, and I agree to find a contractor that could perhaps do it for less, and then we could add extra streets in on the end. But I really have no preference for whatever streets are done, but I do agree that if we can get a better price, we should look at that. That's all I have.
Any other council members have comments?
This is Dan, Councilman Epperson. I'm good.
Tom, I'm going to take your silence as silence.
I agree with Dom and Stacy. Yeah, obviously we want to get it done for the least amount possible. I don't have a problem with the order of things that we see here. I mean, obviously there's way more than we'll ever get done this year. So, you know, Shakely is a really well-traveled street. It gets a lot of traffic. So that seems like a priority to me.
This is Mayor Ratton. I would agree. I'm not sure how much we're going to get with Shakely to Sutter if the bid that we have here is $356,000 and we only have about 147. So I think we probably should identify the worst area that needs the most improvement and use that as the starting point. John Wanger, would you agree? You have to unmute. No, we may have lost John.
John Wanger, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my phone was not coming off of the dark screen.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so I believe Shakely that 347 or let's see,
56.
$356,000 went all the way from Sutter to Fairway, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a longer distance. But we can look at first of all on Stacy's comment. I'm totally fine sharing perspective plans with a contractor and saying, what do you think, and getting his feedback on it. Obviously, we have to publicly bid it in accordance with not only the municipal code, but the public contract code. But I would agree. I mean, the prices that we saw last year, part of it has to do with the size of the jobs that we do. The county puts out obviously much larger jobs than we do, but that doesn't mean that we can't get better costs than what we got last year. So I'm totally comfortable taking that approach. The direction that I would need from the council if we want to do that, number one is everybody comfortable with doing Shakely, and I can work with that contractor on cost per unit foot and talk about how much of that we can get done. But the other question is, does the council still want to do a smaller paving project, which would be, we had thrown out a section of Sacramento Street. So I would need some direction on that as well.
Mayor, this is Mayor Ratton. I would say if we can get both of them done within our budgeted costs, that we absolutely should. If we can get the biggest bang for our buck is, always the best.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one more comment, and I brought this up to John Wanger before, and it was just basically to remind everyone that the people of the town are going to take this upsetting again, because it looks like we're throwing all the money at Castle Oaks, and the streets in Old Town are in way worse shape, and they're not getting maintained. So that's how it's going to look. I personally don't care what road is done, because in my philosophy, the better the road is, the faster people drive. So I don't care to live on a beat up road myself, but I just want to throw that out there, that it's going to cause animosity, like always happens, that Old Town people don't get taken care of, and Castle Oaks just got slurry sealed last year, and now you're going to slurry seal up there again. So that's, like, I personally don't care, but that's what it's going to look like to some people. So I just want everyone to understand that.
Hello, this is Dominic, Councilmember Atlan here. We have always, can you hear me, first of all, before I rant on?
Yes.
Okay, so last year we did actually we did Sutter Lane, which is not Castle Oaks, but I understand where Councilmember Rhodes is coming from. We've always tried to do these projects, all over town. And if we can do something on Sacramento Street, I would prefer that. But we did not do Castle Oaks last year. It was actually Sutter Lane. That's all I have.
Yeah, we actually did. Sutter Lane was 2 years ago, and last year we did Edgebrook and a lot of the area down there. But I completely get it. The one thing I will say is one of the issues is when you take the projects where we've got substandard sewer lines under those roads, and we eliminate those from the list because it wouldn't make sense to put a bunch of money onto roads and then end up having to come back in the next, let's say, 5 years and do a sewer project in any of those roads. That's why the list is limited to less in the Old Town area, and it's because a lot of those a lot of the streets have sewer lines that are needing replacing. So I totally get it. And I'm happy to take any direction, but I just wanted to throw that out.
This is John Hankin. And also I agree with Councilor Rhodes' sentiment and what John said. The other thing I want to add into that is in the old part of town, Amador Water Agency has some water lines that also need to be replaced. So we need to take that into consideration as well. We are working with them to try to coordinate a effort to do water and sewer line replacements at the same time so that we can redo the streets in the old part of town without having to worry about having to dig them up in a year or two.
Hey, Councilman Epperson here. I know I've had people make some similar comments to what Councilman Rhodes is referring to. And as long as we put the list on the website and it's clearly stated that we're doing sewer, water, and street paving in the old part of town, that tends to take the edge off. And I've had a number of people, I just refer them to the website, and it's easy to find, or at least it used to be. So I would suggest that we make sure we put a page there, in the appropriate place where people can refer to it so they can know a timeline as to when they can expect their streets to be addressed.
Councilmember Reed here. I know that politically it's going to look bad. I believe, though, that if I remember correctly from, a couple of years ago, that we're actually saving the city money by doing preventative care on some of these newer streets. If we go back in and to the older streets and do the asphalt at this point, then the newer streets start falling apart, and we end up having to pay more for them later on rather than protecting them. But I know politically it doesn't look good, but we could look at something like North Ione or part of that one of those Sacramento streets. That would be okay with me as well.
This is Mayor Ratton. I think if we're going to do Sacramento Street to West Jackson to West Market and Shakely Lane, depending on where we're looking at Shakely, if you're taking it from Edgebrook down to Preston, right? Then that is not the new part of town by any stretch. So, perception being what it is, if that's the area we're looking at redoing, we are maintaining the older area in this go-round.
Actually, the Shakely projects that are listed here are up in the newer area, Sutter to Fairway, and lost track of the other one. And Poppy to Sutter.
Well, the one that John pointed out, this is Diane Ratton again, Shakely Lane, Sutter to, if we're talking about all the way to Fairway, but we aren't going to be able to go all the way to Fairway with the amount of money we have. So we're talking about all of Shakely up to Edgebrook. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, and actually, if we could even get more, we may actually, if we could list Shakely in general, because quite honestly, it can use it all the way from Preston out to Fairway. And I think what we would end up doing is looking at getting as much of that done, obviously looking at sections that are probably in the worst condition. So honestly, it would probably be between Preston and Sutter, where we would be looking at concentrating. We could go further to the west, but I think the section between Preston and Sutter may be in worse shape.
I would agree. Any further council discussion? John, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I was just going to say if the council can trust staff enough to just say shakily and have my word that we're going to look at doing the older section between Preston and Sutter first, see how much of that we can get done, and if we could go beyond that, fine. But if not, we're going to look at trying to do the portion of Shakely that needs that's in the worst shape, basically.
John, this is Councilman Reed. One of the Poppy to Sutter section of Sutter Lane you have down as needing an asphalt overlay, not just the slurry.
Give me 1 second here.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, Poppy to Sutter. You're right. You're right. So we would have to exclude certain sections. We'll go out there and look at it again, and as much as we can get done with respect to slurry seal or what's called a cape seal, we would do that and preserve as much as we could. Excluding the section that you just mentioned. So otherwise, if it is in that bad a shape between Poppy and Sutter, we wouldn't want to be just putting slurry seal on something that needs a lot more than that. But for the areas outside of that, being Preston to Poppy and west of Sutter, we would look at doing that.
So the area between Poppy and Sutter, sorry, this is Diane Ratton. It's listed here at $344,000. And the area from West Jackson to West Market, isn't that a longer stretch of road?
No, it's only the section from West Jackson to West Market is 1 block long.
Well,
and it's
Poppy
a shorter.
Poppy to Sutter is not that much longer.
I think it's a shorter. The one for the one between West Market or whatever I had in the staff report, that section between West Market and West Jackson. I want to say it's a couple of 100 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry, which one was a couple 100 feet? The Sacramento the West Jackson and West Market?
Yes.
Okay. Because the space between Poppy and Sutter is literally a block, if it's that. Yeah. That's it, and it's $344,000. That just seems out of focus, out of touch.
that section from Popper to Sutter is more than a block. It's more, at least 2 standard city blocks and probably a little bit longer.
Yeah, I happen, because we're working remotely, I happen to have Google Earth in front of me, and the section of Sacramento is about 250 feet long, and the section of between Poppy and Sutter is close to a bit around 575 feet to 600 feet. So it's almost double. But you're right. It is. I believe Shakely is a wider street, so it's probably, and there's also curb and gutter, and there needs grinding and a few other things on Shakely that Sacramento wouldn't need, but we can certainly look at it.
Yeah, I would think so. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to open it to public comment. You have to unmute your phone. Hey, Larry.
I would, that bid on Summit, Sacramento Street, that's gonna be a dig out if you don't do something with it sometime, cause it's got a couple sections there that probably 20 feet long. They're gonna have to be dug out in the center lane. I think it's from a past sewer line or something they worked on there one time, maybe a water line, but somebody's gonna have to patch it someday. Just my comment.
Thank you, Larry. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Okay, so our directions to John Wanger and city engineer is that we would like for him to look at the Jackson to West Market and give him a open-ended on Shakely Lane. Is that what I'm hearing?
Just to clarify, so what that would be the Sacramento Street asphalt overlay from West Jackson to West Market and the Shakely Lane slurry seal from Preston all the way up, or however much the budget accounts for. Is that correct?
That is my understanding. This is Diane Ratton.
This is Dominic.
Does everybody...
I agree with that.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Casey?
No.
Do you have a suggestion other than that, Stacey, that you would like to see? Because this is direction to staff, so it's not a...
Let me go in another room. I'm just worried that we're so far late in the year already, and this is obviously going to take some more time, that we should roll it over to next year. And it gives us, we don't lose the money, we just roll it over, and we can plan it out better, because even if we gave John the okay right now and go out, then by the time you get the bids, they're going to probably be not too late. They're going to be way overpriced again. So like I said before, this is something you need to kind of plan for like a half a year in advance or even a year in advance. So I just don't want to happen what happened last year, where we're down the last minute and all of a sudden we spray and painted a road. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
So along those lines, John, we're not talking about making any kind of a commitment here. We're simply going to go to the contractors and say, how much is this going to cost? And if the costs come back and they're not in keeping with what we're willing to work with, then we at that point can say, no, we're going to roll these funds over to next year. Is that correct?
It is correct that what we would have to do is double check with the state to make sure that they will allow us to roll it over, because SB1s do have some restrictions to them, but we can certainly do that. But obviously, to Stacy's point, we want to get on this as soon as possible, and we can start working as soon as next week with the contractor, as long as we're given that contractor's name with respect to pricing, which will drive kind of how much we include within the project on Shakely Lane. So it can happen relatively quickly. We can, like I said, we can probably be ready to go in June. Last year it was more like September, October. So, but I don't disagree with this comment. It's a question of, can we get decent prices?
All right. Well, I think we have direction is to go out and see what it's going to cost us.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, moving on. Item number 3, adoption of resolution number 2020-09, accepting parcel A as shown on final subdivision map of the Castle Oaks Village 5.
Madam Mayor, council members, back in 2019, the council accepted the improvements associated with Castle Oaks Village 5, except the council elected at that time not to accept parcel A, and parcel A was landscaped, basically a hillside area behind some of the homes, with the comment saying that we wanted to make sure that there was enough tax revenue being generated from the lighting and landscaping assessment district and revenues once the homes were occupied. And the council gave direction that they wanted at least 50% of the individual parcels occupied before they accepted parcel A. And the developer, Riverland Homes, has contacted us a couple of months ago. They said they've confirmed that over 33 homes have been sold and are currently occupied, and accordingly, they've asked that the city accept parcel A. So it's a pretty straightforward thing, but the council has to take action on it.
Council discussion?
Councilman Epperson here. Go ahead, Dominic.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna ask how much maintenance will this take? I mean, that was our discussion last time, was the fact that we were gonna have to take care of an extra piece of ground.
I believe it's weed abatement, and I don't have the cost for. I don't believe there's any landscaping on it. I believe it's primarily weed abatement.
Thank you.
But that will be this is John Hankin, that will be a regular cost associated with the lighting and landscaping district.
Hello, this is Councilmember Atlan here. All I want to know is the 33 lots, will that cover weed abatement? Will that portion of the LLMD cover weed abatement? If it does, then I'm happy to accept it. If not, perhaps Riverland could do the weed abatement this year as a condition of acceptance. That's all I have.
This is John Hankin again. I would agree with Councilor Atlan's comments, is that Riverland Homes should take the weeds all down before it's turned over to us. It shouldn't be a maintenance liability right off the bat.
Councilman Epperson, I agree. Thank you.
This is Mayor Ratton. I would agree too.
So does Reed.
Rhodes agrees.
So, John, do we know if it covers 50%, if that 33 homes are enough to cover the cost of maintaining that piece of property?
That I don't know yet. I'd have to go back and double check in terms of what the homes provide each year. But remember, part of that lighting and landscaping does go to the lighting as well. So, like I said, I'll need to double check and get back to you on terms of what that subdivision would generate from a revenue source for the lighting and landscaping district, and then look at what the additional maintenance would be in terms of a contract to maintain that through the landscape agreement.
Okay, so should we table this matter?
I'm sorry, I missed that comment.
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm not sure it matters if part of this resolution is that they take care of it this year. There's not going to be a problem. They're going to have enough homes sold by next year that it will be paying for whatever it is.
That's a good point. Any further council discussion? Okay, I'm going to open up for public comment.
This is Lori Lord. I'd like to make one comment. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
My only comment would be to have somebody watch how Riverland does it so that we don't have to figure it out on our own, because I wondered how they get up the hill. That's all.
Thank you, Lori. Any further public comment? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment. And we need to have a resolution on this.
Councilman Epperson here. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2009 with them to we're willing to abate the weeds before we accept it.
Dan, I'd
one
like
more
to.
time.
More time. I'll make a motion that we accept, or that we approve resolution 2009. That we accept the parcel A as shown on the final subdivision map for Castle Oaks Village 5, with the added portion that they would abate the weeds before we accept it.
Dan, Tom Reed here. Could you also add to the changing the date in the last sentence?
Yes. I'll accept those changes. Today's date. That's a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Okay, Reed second.
We have a first and a second. We need to do a voice call. Atlin?
Aye.
Jefferson?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rhodes?
Aye.
Patton is yes. We have the, we're all good. Moving on. Number 5, wildflower development, confirmation of allowable number of units allowed prior to connection of Foothill Drive and State Route 104.
Madam Mayor, I think we're on number 4. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. I chalked it up too soon. Excuse me. Item number 4, adoption of resolution number 2020-08, revision of the standard drawings, SS7, SS9, ST4, ST10, and ST11 as shown in the city's improvement standards, and adoption of the new standards in SF12.
Yes, Madam Mayor and council members, John Wanger again. This has been something that's been in the works over the course of the year. The Public Works Superintendent and I have been comparing notes on a number of things, and we've tried to save this up and group it rather than bringing one at a time. And so before you tonight is a couple of different things. One has to do with changing the standards to allow a different pipe bedding material for any pipelines that are put within the ground, which is actually involving standards SS7 and SS9. What we're looking to change it to right now, the standards call for something called Class 1 backfill material, and we're looking to change that to crushed rock because crushed rock is a lot more readily available in the area, and it also provides a decent bedding for the pipe. The second standard that we're talking about tonight has to do with standards ST4, ST10, and ST11. And what we're running into, and we have run into, particularly out in the Castle Oaks area, is our current standards calls for something called Class B concrete, which develops a strength of 2,500 PSI. And what ends up happening is the curb gutters and sidewalks ended up getting built before the homes get built, and we don't know where the driveways are. And the current standards ask for driveways to be thickened with concrete so it supports a vehicle driving over the sidewalk. And the problem is they don't know where those driveways are. It's rolled curb. They can move the driveways around. So we actually worked with Riverland Homes to try to come up with a solution, because what we were finding is when we go to accept the improvements after all the homes are built, there's a significant amount of cracked sidewalk that they have to go back and fix. And so the most palatable solution that developers have agreed to is actually just changing the concrete mix to use high strength concrete, which is not, according to the developers, it's not too significant of a cost, and it's much easier for them to deal with that than try to figure out and commit to where all the driveways are. So in those standards, ST4, ST10, and ST11, what we've recommended is changing the concrete associated with the sidewalk to high strength concrete. And then the last proposed new standard that we're talking about, which is standard SD12, has to do with under sidewalk drains that outlet in the curb and gutter, as opposed to allowing water to go over the top of the sidewalk. And the detail that's being proposed is pretty much the same detail that was used in the Wildflower subdivision. And one of the reasons why we like that so much is because every once in a while you end up with nuisance water from a variety of different sources that ends up going over the sidewalk. Some of it goes over the sidewalk year round. And what we're trying to do is get it so we minimize the amount of rainwater and drainage that goes across the sidewalk. And it's a pretty simple solution. It's very common in a lot of different agencies to have these sidewalk drains. So we've proposed that as a new standard. So most of this is kind of detailed cleanup work, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but we've actually attached copies of the standards, and I can, if council members have questions of where the changes are, I can point it out on the individual standards, but that's generally the reasoning why we're asking for these changes, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council discussion?
Councilman Epperson here. I just have one comment on, it has to be on page 1 there, on item, the number 2 portion. I think it was the ST, the driveway issue as far as not knowing where it is. I would ask that you would add maybe a line in there for like a homeowner or a builder that wants to build a house that knows where the sidewalk is, that they would have to only put it where they need it. That's agreeable.
Stacy Rhodes here. One of the problems is this crushed rock. There's a couple of wrong statements with it. One of them is that it's readily available and it's hard to get other stuff. Well, that's not true. You can get any material literally within a mile radius of Ione to backfill with. The problem with crushed rock is everyone knows what French drain is. So I literally went to a house on Shakely that has the problem of that water that looks like they're overwatering their lawn coming from a stream. Well, what compounded that whole problem is that is French.
We've lost you, Stacy. Hold on, Stacy, you're cutting out.
Oh, okay. The siren was going. Kenny, turn your siren
okay.
on.
Sorry, automatic.
So what I was saying was the whole hill above the Shakely is a huge French drain now. Every pipe up there that has crushed 3/4 rock in it became these huge French drains. So I went up there, and the whole back of their property is basically destroyed because of this, because all the water, when I was up there, was just gushing out of the hill, coming out of the neighbors' meters and shooting backwards. If you go to her house, it's actually like it's blowing out of her meter box. Not the water line, it's the natural springs that were there, and it caused this huge problem where all the water is being channeled off the hill now. Another example is, I believe it's Washington Street up by the elementary school, there was a sewer line put in years ago. They were told to put drain rock back in it, and the contractor, which I know very well, even stated we should not do that because what's going to happen is you're on a side hill, so all the water is going to funnel down and eventually blow out the bottom of the road. It's happening. Personally, and I've put in thousands of pipelines in my life, I'm still doing it to this day, and the best thing to do, whatever you dig out of the trench, you put it back in. You just got to make sure you compact it. And what a lot of people are afraid of, they don't understand Ione area, is there's a lot of clay in it. And if you don't understand you can compact clay, they freak out and they say, well, we just throw this rock in there. So I totally disagree with the idea of putting crushed rock in. And if you talk to any pipe guys, they will flat tell you it'll destroy the pipe over time, especially with this new plastic that contracts and moves. It eventually will cut a hole in it. But the biggest problem is it makes freaking drains out of everything. And there's way better material out there. You can get anything in Ione. So I don't know where this thing is, came up where it's easy to get. You can't get anything except this crushed rock. So that's my statement on the rock part of it. So now I'm going to move on to this concrete thing. I worked with concrete all my life, and again, so I understand this. People don't really understand the PSI of concrete. The problem that I see is, again, it's with compaction. 2,500 to 3,000 PSI is like a standard for sidewalks. And as long as your ground is compacted right, your sidewalk's fine. Now, let's say you went into something like a heavy industrial grade where you're running forklifts around in a big warehouse. You move up to a application of 4,000 to 5,000 PSI concrete, which is extremely strong. So let's get up to the 6,000, which is in this document. 6,000 is what you use when you build a nuclear reactor. That's what you basically use in it. And I've even called one of my concrete guys, and they said they've never made 6,000 PSI, and the cost of it would be astronomical. And even to do so, once you do it, once you get up into those PSIs, you got to get a special inspector out there to pour the cores out of the truck and you sample the truck. It's a huge ordeal. So what I think you're going to do is you're going to end up upsetting anyone that makes a sidewalk around. 6,000 PSI is ridiculous. You'll get laughed at. People go, what are you doing? I think the major problem is the compaction before they put the sidewalk in. Again, we got clay here, so most people don't. So if they want it up at maybe 3,000 PSI, that's something different, or maybe force them to put hair in it, reinforcement wire, but going to 6,000 PSI concrete is just overkill and ridiculous. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents. I will stop now.
This is Diane Ratton. You indicated here, John, that they are using this, they use this 6,000 PSI in the sidewalks in Castle Oaks, and that they have seen that this hasn't had any significant cracking or any problems with it. Did they actually use the 6,000 PSI?
That's my understanding, yes. When we talked to them, and first of all, the standard that we're asking for is actually in the Caltrans standard specs. It's called high strength concrete. So it is a state standard. It's not completely foreign or anything like that. But when we went to Riverland Homes, because we ended up with a lot of problems with driveways. The issue is that because they don't know where the driveways are, they can't put in thickened sections of concrete. They're supposed to put in thicker concrete in the driveways to add that extra strength. And so we gave them the option, do you want to go back and commit to where those driveways are in the future and put in thickened concrete there, or would you rather use high strength concrete? And they came back immediately and they said, we would rather use high strength concrete. So in a couple of the newer villages that have been put in out there, it's my understanding, talking with the public works superintendent, that they have used high strength concrete, and they actually Riverland Homes welcomed using that. So it's my understanding that yes, they have used that.
Okay, and my other question is on the change from a Class 1 backfill to crushed rock. Is that a step down? It would seem to me that it looks to me like it is, but this isn't my area of expertise. So if we're stepping down from a Class A backfill into crushed rock, I'm not sure what the best rationale to lighten the requirements are when we do have some issues with it.
I can tell you that the public works superintendent has told me that he's had issues with some of the Class 1 backfill material that's been used, and I don't know whether that is compaction or not placing it properly. But he has seen, he's told me that he's seen a lot of success, and he's actually allowed crushed rock in certain areas, and it's worked fine. So on this one, Mayor Ratton, I am pretty much relying on the public works superintendent with respect to his experience out in the field with that material.
Is there, can we have this be an either or, depending on the circumstance of the, the situation?
Yes, we could.
Okay. I think that would be given the options, then if it's okay and works for the crushed rock, fine. If if it requires a higher level of a Class 1 backfill material, then that might be something that you would have to make that call on. Is that correct, John?
Yes. Well, sometimes it ends up getting made field by, depending upon what the project is, by the public works superintendent. But yeah, typically we'll look at the plans. It'll be called for on the plans, and we'll look at it at that time. So.
Okay. That would be my suggestion.
Councilmember Reed here. I'm certainly a long way from an expert, but I had the same thoughts as Stacy on the crushed rock. It seemed to me like that would be make the pipes more prone to being worn out sooner. That's all I can say about that. I did want to object to something that Dan suggested on the number 2. If we're going to go with the higher strength concrete, it should be for the entire sidewalk. First of all, my first preference is no rolled sidewalks, because I hate it when people drive up on the sidewalk. But it happens all the time, and I know I'm in a great minority on that one. So if we're going to use that, it should be used all the way along, because even if they know where the driveway is going to be, they don't know if that owner is going to put in an RV on the side of the house and be driving over some other part of the sidewalk. And they certainly don't know how many people are going to be parking on the sidewalk, which happens all the time. So if we're going to go with the higher strength concrete, it should be for the whole thing.
I would agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, and the way, just for clarity, the way the note reads on that, like on ST4, on the detail, if you look at the note for item 5, it says all concrete used in sidewalks shall be high strength. So it does actually cover that in standard ST4, but I can go through and make sure that gets covered if that's the council's desire.
Hello, this is Council Member Atlin. I'm okay with going with a high strength concrete. It doesn't necessarily need to be 6,000, but a higher strength, whatever is acceptable. The other thing is there's a lot of people that start cutting in extra accesses to the streets, and they're not reinforcing the concrete or making it thicker. So I would just like to make sure that, anybody that does that in the existing sidewalks, which are prone to cracking, they have to put in 6-inch concrete where they do that. That's all I have.
Any further council discussion?
This is Stacy Rhodes again. John Wanger, can you correct me? But when you set out and do a pipeline job, the main thing you want is the compaction. And I think on most of your pipe jobs, everyone wants about a 98% compaction or 95, whatever that number is. It doesn't matter what the backfill material is. The trick of this is you want it compacted so the trench don't settle and the pipe don't move. That's the whole reason that you do this. So regardless if you put clay in it, round rocks, cut rocks, whatever, as long as you reach the compaction, that's what everyone is looking for. So I don't see what the material is. And like I say, I don't like just 3/4 crush in there because it makes a huge French drain. So maybe that's one answer to it. Just make sure the compaction's correct, and who cares if it's cut back out of the trench that you dug it out of, or just make sure the compaction is correct and leave it open to what can be used in the trench. And as far as the concrete, again, the term high strength concrete, I believe, is just anything over 3,000 PSI, which could have fiberglass in it, could have a gel in it, could have all these other things in it. So, and I'm worried about if you throw that 6,000 out, these multi-million-dollar companies, oh, problem. But let's say Diane Ratton wants to fix a new sidewalk around her house. She's going to take out a loan to put in 6,000 PSI. So, I'm done.
Yeah, Councilman Epperson here. Yeah, I would just like the flexibility there to make it deeper or stronger. So whatever the homeowner, I know that the developers, they're in they got a large bunch of houses, so they got the economies of scale on their side. But the local homeowner, if they're trying to fix something, to be nice if they had a little bit of flexibility to go one way or the other, so they're not going bankrupt just trying to fix a sidewalk.
Well, I think we need to be, this is Diane Ratton, I think we need to be clear on our terminology. So if in fact the high strength concrete is from 3,000 to 6,000, that term needs to be used rather than using the term 6,000 PSI. Because you're kind of putting us in a knothole by using the PSI rather than the high strength concrete. If what you're going for is the high strength concrete. So it's one or the other. It can't have both of those, that language in there, I don't think. I don't think that's appropriate.
Hey, Councilman,
Could it also...
Go ahead, Tom.
This time.
Okay, this is Tom Reed. Could there also be an option, like for the local homeowner, of just using the thicker regular concrete?
Councilman Epperson here. Sure. I think you probably cover both by defining that in the glossary terms of high strength, either being by PSI or by thickness. That might suffice.
Is it smart? This is Diane Ratton. Is it something that we want to do? Is we want to parse out these kinds of projects like this, or do we want to have more of a universal approach to what is the standard? Because we're looking at a contractor here that's building a developer, and then you're going to make an exception for a single family homeowner for utilizing a different kind of project. Is that, I don't know that is, not that I like this word, but it's fair. Is it correct?
This is John. I would suggest that what we do is we can put in the standard, first of all, we'll use high strength, and we can define that better, or leave out the above 6,000 PSI. And then we can give the option of or putting in thicker section for the driveways. I don't think that's an issue at all. One of the things that would alleviate this, and I believe Councilmember Reed said it, is if we were to get away from rolled curb, because when you have vertical curb, obviously it commits you to where your driveway cut is. But we've got an entire area of Castle Oaks and Wildflower, I believe, uses. I think they're using rolled curb, if I'm not mistaken. But bottom line is, it's been what's been used in the past, preferences in the past, but we can certainly make the flexibility. I can certainly incorporate what the council has mentioned tonight with respect to including the option to use 3/4 inch crushed rock or Class 1 backfill, making sure that the compaction is right on that, as well as using high-strength concrete for all sidewalks if they're going to be using rolled curb, or give the option to use thicker section concrete if it's specifically with driveways, or just our standard concrete if it's in areas where there are no driveways. So I can clarify that as well.
Councilman Epperson, that sounds great. Thank you, John.
Yep, sounds good to me. Diane Ratton.
It sounds
So
good to me. You've given everybody flexibility, so that sounds good.
Yes, Reed.
Do we need to table this? I mean, do we have to rewrite this, or do we take the resolution on this as is, or do we incorporate what has been said?
This is Sophie Meyer. Whichever way you want to do it, if you take what is already here, you're going to have to amend it to what you want it to say. And it might be cleaner to give direction to staff to bring it back with your suggested amendments for a final review, depending on how time sensitive this is.
This is John. I'd recommend that it come back with a clean copy.
Okay. Sophie, do I have to do public comment on this if we're bringing it back?
You should do public comment on it because the public may have some recommendations that they want considered before it gets brought back.
Okay. All right. Are we finished with council comments? Okay. I'll open it to public comment.
This is Larry Rhodes. I've done quite a few pipes in my life. The French drain thing is a big deal. I put a lot of French drain PMPs in, which is perforated steel pipe. Put in lots of it, and if you put it on a hill and you put rock around it, and especially if you put the felt around it, it'll never run out of the PMP. It'll run out of the leach rock underneath it. It's a big deal. We've had problems on a road where we put culverts in, 30-inch culvert, and they had us put rock underneath it, and it washed the culvert out. So we had to go in and replace that. To me, the best stuff is shale. There ain't nothing better than shale compaction, but I know you guys are going to do that. But that is a problem. And the cement, the sidewalks, the biggest problem with sidewalks is not the cars really driving over it. I did all of Preston Avenue, the whole thing. And the biggest thing is your trees. You guys plant these trees next to it, and they will uproot it. And we actually put wire in Preston Avenue. You can walk up it. The slabs in between the brake joints are not cracked. It actually tree roots raise the sidewalk. So you got a problem with these trees. As far as a sidewalk, I think it's a good idea. Whoever suggested that the landowner wants to, he can put the 6-inch in, which ain't that much. I just think that's a good question. Being variable on a rock is a good deal too. I think that's a good deal. Thank you.
Everyone there, I can't hear anything.
I'm sorry, my phone is dying. I'm plugging in right now. All right, sorry about that. Thank you.
Did you say something?
Okay, so we're moving on to number 5. Wildflower development, confirmation of allowable numbers of units allowed prior to connection to Foothill Drive and State Route 104.
Madam Mayor, there is a little bit of history to this. A lot of it's described in the staff report, and I'll try to be brief in this, but bottom line is the Wildflower and Gold Village developments started way back in 2004. It was part of what was called the Reagan GRE subdivision. And with that original development, there was a traffic study done, and as well as an environmental document, which was a mitigated negative deck that was approved by the council, and I believe that was approved in January of 2005. And it had some conditions in there with respect to accessing State Route 104 for the Wildflower development, as well as using Brickyard. And what ended up happening in 2006, the city approved a set of plans called Wildflower Major Roads that included extending Foothill Boulevard to State Route 104, as well as improving Brickyard from Foothill down to State Route 124. And then the Brickyard improvements were actually constructed in 2007. The plans for the improvement of the intersection of Foothill Boulevard and State Route 104 were completed, and they were sent to Caltrans District 10 in 2007, and again in 2008, but the development stopped, and therefore those intersection plans were never approved. As things moved forward, the Gold Village portion of it dropped out, and the Wildflower subdivision wanted to be kind of a standalone project, and that's when Ryland Homes had it. And they had a traffic engineering firm by the name of K.D. Anderson conduct a traffic analysis of Brickyard to serve as the primary interim access road for Wildflower Units 3, 4, and 5 until such time as the Gold Village subdivision was ready to move forward. And then the Foothill State Route 104 intersection would be done. So in 2006, K.D. Anderson did do a revised traffic study. They looked at something that they term as the worst case evaluation, and it looked at the intersection of State Route 124 at Brickyard Road. And what it said is they assumed, first of all, that the project included the Wildflower traffic for what was shown on their map, as well as it included traffic volumes from what was known as a future Buena Vista Casino. And they looked at all that, and what they recommended was Brickyard being the primary entry into the Wildflower development would be good until somewhere between 75 to 100 units were occupied in the Brickyard or in the Wildflower development. If it extended beyond 100 units, it was recommending additional improvements to State Route 124, including some left turn pockets, which would be pretty expensive. Then kind of moving on between 2008 and 2015, Ryland Homes went out of the picture, went back to Ken Lupton, ended up being sold to Axios Homes, and Axios Homes went ahead and recorded the final map for units 4 and 5, as well as they have to date pulled building permits for all 87 units in Village 4. Unit 5, it has not been built on at this point in time. But where we're at this point in the game is obviously we have the Brickyard being the primary access to the subdivision. Foothill Boulevard was graded but was never improved. The intersection of State Route 104 and Foothill had not moved forward until recently. And Wildflower has also come forward recently in wanting to move forward with Unit 3, which is an additional 92 single-family lots. So I met with the developer of Wildflower, being Axios Homes. They actually purchased the remaining portion of Wildflower from Ken Lupton. I also have been meeting with Rob Aragon, who is representing the village. And those two developers being the Gold Village and the Wildflower Development are working on a cost-sharing agreement to share with the improvements of the intersection of Foothill and State Route 124. The update at this point in time is there have been the plans that were done back in 2007 have been updated and resubmitted to Caltrans, and the developer is looking for approvals from Caltrans within the next couple of months for that intersection. As I said before, back in 2006 and 7, when the revised traffic analysis was done, it brought a maximum threshold of 100 units being used by the Brickyard Road and State Route 124 as a sole access to the development. And given the fact that 87 units have already been issued building permits, several of which have been occupied, there's only 13 units left of remaining capacity prior to either improvements being needed at the Brickyard State Route 124 intersection, or Foothill Boulevard is extended to State Route 124, and then improvements to the State Route 124 or the State Route 104 intersection would have to be done. And so knowing this, Axios Homes recently approached the city and requested that the threshold of homes allowed to be built prior to completely building the intersection of Foothill and State Route 104 be amended. And what Axios Homes is asking for is that the city allow up to 125 lots to be built in the development overall before Foothill and State Route 124 improvements are constructed and second access is fully operational. And for allowing that, what Axios Homes is proposed to do is to partially complete Foothill Boulevard, which would include installing compacted base rock on the portion of Foothill Boulevard between Unit 3 and State Route 104, but they wouldn't pave it at this time. And then as they continue to work through getting the Caltrans approvals, once they got Caltrans approvals, then they would move forward with completing those improvements. But the intent of what Axios Homes is proposing with this temporary emergency road, they would also be installing a gate with a Knox box that would allow for emergency vehicles to access the development in case there was an emergency. And because the decision to allow the 100 units was really part of the environmental document, staff cannot make that decision at a staff level, and we've brought that to the council level for your consideration. So what's being requested with this particular item is whether the council is willing to allow any unit beyond the 100 unit threshold that was mentioned in the original K.D. Anderson report. And if so, would the council allow up to 125 units to be built, with the understanding that Foothill Boulevard would, a base rock road would be extended up to State Route 104 until such time as the Caltrans plans are fully vetted and approved through Caltrans, and then they would begin on those improvements. So with that, I will open it up to any council questions, and I believe Thomas Borges with Axios Homes is probably also on the line, and I think he would be willing to answer any questions as well.
This is Councilmember Atlan. I'd like to jump in really quick. So on the K.D. Anderson report, it does say here that between 75 and 100 dwelling units could be occupied, not built. What I propose, and I've spoken to Mr. Borges, is that we allow him to build 125 homes, but he has agreed to sign whatever he needs to sign, that he will not get a certificate of occupancy. So he can build them, he cannot occupy them, and I think that satisfies, everything with regards to public safety and everything else, and that would be my recommendation. Put a condition on the 25 homes that they cannot be occupied, which he has said to me that he would agree to that and let him build the homes but not occupy them. And that's what I have. We need to help the developer, especially right now. You know, it's going to be tough to sell homes. We don't want to stall this, and then it's 10 more years. He has indicated that he will build the road to 104 this year. So I think we should try and expedite that before there's a downturn in the market. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Epperson here. I talked to Warren Alfred from Caltrans. He's our District 10 representative. And I asked him what the process was and where they're at. And he said they would not give a timeline, only because it's out at several different groups. It's at the permitting stage, but they had to have some feedback from several different groups. I'm not sure what those groups were. I was not in a place where I could take good notes. But he also did tell me, too, that if they're having a problem getting the approvals for that intersection, then the city, the council, developer, et cetera, we can go to Caltrans and request that we have a meeting with them, and that he would be glad to arrange that, and that way we could get the project moving forward if that's what it takes to get the project going as far as the intersection goes.
Councilman Reed here. I wasn't in on the original agreement there, and excuse me. I don't have a problem with extending this. My thought, though, is that if I understand it correctly, the original intersection at extension of Foothill and the intersection was halted because of the downturn in the economy back in 2008. Well, there's certainly no guarantee that we won't see a downturn in the economy anytime soon. Could happen within a few months. So I hate to see that put on hold again. However, seeing the willingness to put in a partially complete Foothill Boulevard, putting the base, for emergency traffic, that kind of mitigates my concerns there. Because my biggest concern is I've never liked the fact that there was just the one entrance from one of the most fire-prone area, in this area here, right across the street there from Brickyard Road. If there was going to be a fire, that's where it would be, and the only exit is right through that area. So I would really want to see an emergency exit provided before anything beyond the 100 homes is built. After that, I don't have a problem with waiting for Caltrans to get their improvements done and that sort of thing. But I really want to see that Foothill Boulevard basic emergency road put in there.
Rose here. This was way before my time, but I do know the whole history on it. If I had my way, should have been hooked to the highway from the beginning. Going on Brickyard, I think, was not a wise choice, but that's what had happened. I think Thomas would have complied with whatever going at. He just would have had to know what to do. But maybe Sophia can answer this, or maybe Thomas can. In this traffic study, is the only thing that I saw where it has this recommendation of this 100 house number and it goes up. I do not believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's the permit that mitigates. Is there an actual mitigation measure that says he's got to do this, and let's say number 3 is one of the mitigation measures is once you hit 100 houses, you cannot do it until you connect to the road. Is it an actual in the permit, or the only language that we're seeing is in some traffic study? And does that even count? Because I would think his permit should supersede what's supposed to be going. That makes sense. So can someone answer that? Is that actually in his permit?
Stacy, this is John Langer. All of this was done before my time as well, and This question has come up repeatedly as Axios Homes has taken things over. I cannot find a particular condition of approval referencing that they're mandated to this 100-unit threshold. However, the issue becomes that traffic report was supplemental to, but it has been inferred that that's part of the environmental document, and that's where things get a little bit sticky, because it doesn't show up specifically as a condition of approval or a mitigation measure in the original document, but when the supplemental one was done, there was clearly a recommendation, and I think I included that as part of the staff package, the actual analysis. So it is it is not clear in the conditions of approval, but the supplemental traffic study, it does make that recommendation.
Thomas, this is Rhodes again. Can you answer the question, maybe, if you're of doing this all your life? It's just the do they actually put the mitigation in there of traffic and blah, 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 or they just use the environmental impact as part of it? Because in my experience, your mitigation measures are your mitigation measures. Even if something in there is worded, it has to be mitigated, especially something as, let's say, as powerful as this subject. I mean, this ain't some little thing like you won't cut down so many oak trees. This is like something huge. And I believe that language is not in there. Can you verify that for me, Thomas?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Ratton, and other members of the panel. This is Thomas Ford from Axios Homes. Just like to take a brief second, I'll address that, Stacy, in just a second. I just want to let everyone know that I have Brittany Matilde on the line. This is from Axios Homes. She's our project manager. I have Scott Jones on the line. He's our chief construction superintendent. And I also have Jack Scroggs, our civil engineer for the subdivision, that was also on the line. If he can also give us an update on the Caltrans application, as well as probably answer any technical questions. City Council Rhodes, Councilman Rose, I wanted to go ahead and address where we first came into being of 100 lots, and it's been something that's on everybody's mind, and definitely on ours. First, I want to start by saying Axios Homes is supportive towards bringing the road out to 104. Not only will it make this whole conversation irrelevant, it will help us in our sales, it'll help us in our access, it'll help the fire department have access, the police department have access, it would help everybody. Really what we've done is we've inherited a project that was a little bit back at the very beginning. And what I've been told is the fact that at one point, the reason why it did not start at 104 and work back and go through units 1 through 5 systematically and went and started in the back is because Gold Village did not have a map or anything recorded on their parcel, not even a tentative map, and which left a big void in who's going to be responsible for the improvements in their unit, rather than starting at Wildflower, which is several hundred feet down the road. So Ryland Homes, in the interest of being able to start their project without being involved with Gold Village, chose to go ahead and start towards the back and started the improvements in units 4 and 5, which is when we inherited the project. And really, John Wanger is 100% correct in the fact that he went ahead and cited everything correctly. The issue really comes down to, if there was any mitigation in any of our permits, it would be in our developer agreement. It's not in there. And if there was any conditions, it should have been brought up at the very beginning. We had several meetings during our due diligence period. We went ahead and went through the railroad. We've paid fees. We've gone ahead and filed applications in good faith to help the city through the situation with the railroad. We've done everything we possibly can. We want to be a partner with the city. Really what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a situation where we can be fair to the city, not take on and have them take on the liability. We're 100% in tune with occupancy. I think it's real simple. We're not really asking for anything more than what we would actually be getting anyway. And, legalities get to legalities, and when, attorneys get involved, it just gets ugly, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to go ahead and promote the construction of the extension of Foothill Boulevard down to State Route 104 at our own expense. We have several, tens of thousands of dollars in application fees, and we're bought our own traffic study because Caltrans required it because it was too old from the last time it was submitted. And we're hoping that we can have that approval in 2 to 4 months. But really what it comes down to is we're trying to go ahead and invest a large investment. We're all in now. We bought Ken Lupton out in order to go ahead and make our negotiation with Galelli, the owner of Gold Village, in the cost sharing agreement. And the cost sharing agreement now states that we're Axios Homes 2/3 responsible, and Gold Village is 1/3 responsible for the actual Caltrans intersection, and they're responsible for their own concrete sidewalk, curb, and gutter that goes in front of their village down Foothill Boulevard. And the reason why we were asking to go to 100 is 13 lots more. We're asking for an additional 25 lots, and Councilman Atland said just exactly what we were talking about. We're just trying not to miss the building season, because who knows when the market will change. We've actually retooled our model homes in order to downgrade the square footage of all the homes to 1,200 square feet and 1364. Will be starting price at 320 to 340. And it's really important for us to make a decision based on the fact that we need to get some models in the ground, because what our models are right now, they will fit in unit number 3, but we're actually trying to bring back our FHA buyers with their limits being at 355. We can't accommodate it on our smallest model now. So what we're asking to do is to build our models immediately and go ahead and provide fire suppression there for the 2 models on lot 135 and 136, along with our first starting of our improvements. And we had talked to the fire chief and said that if before we start any production homes and have any combustible materials there, we would actually have 4 fire hydrants live down Honeysuckle Drive, which will be the direction that we're going. And we're looking at our improvements for unit number 3 to take about 4 to 5 months. And at that point, we would actually have models up. We would have some houses being built. I'm 100% agreed with Councilman Atland about not occupying the houses past 100. What I would ask is, being that we're at 100 and we have 4 models in Village 4 and two in Village 3, that we would be allowed to have occupancy permits to 106, which means there's nobody living in the models, is all. And we would be able to be allowed to build out to 125, at which time the connection should be made and should be operational and fully paved. And anything over 100, we would be able to go ahead and have emergency vehicles and access into any of the homes in units 3 or 4.
Answer your question, Stacy. Any other further council discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comment.
Yeah, this is Larry Rose. I just have one comment. I know it might cost a little bit, but how about a bond on that Foothill Boulevard? That way it gets built for the city in case nobody backs out of it. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Madam Mayor, this is Fire Chief Mackey. Do you want me to speak now or wait?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
I want to thank
Actually,
Axios.
Kenny, hold on, Ken. I'm going to close public comment.
Okay.
And you staff can speak. Go right ahead.
Okay.
I closed it. You're good.
Okay. I want to thank, I had a meeting the other day with Axios, and what he said is what we talked about. I need direction from the council, is what I told him before I could make any secured comment to him. The fire road access is a major issue for us out there, as you know. Councilman Reed spoke correctly, is that is our highest wildland urban interface threat, is out off of Brickyard Road. And to have that as the only access point for even 100 homes my original recommendation, because I've been with this whole project since 2004 and gone through multiple, processes here, was 50 to 75 homes, but that was increased to the 100, not by my choice, knowing the fire safety risks that are involved. Paradise and Santa Rosa both proved my findings, or the drive to make sure that this roadway gets installed. We can't have just one access point going in and out for that many houses and that many occupants and still provide fire safety and emergency vehicles to be able to get in as these people are coming out. So this is a direct concern of mine that I hope the council takes into consideration. I understand that the developer has, the urge and the need and drive to put these houses in now, but the crushed rock theory in Ione clay only works limited time. Once we have moisture in the ground, that rock just goes unstable and my vehicles will sink down to the axles. So, to have that as a permanent solution is not an option in my mind. We need to have these roadway completely paved all the way up to the fence line, to the intersection, with a gate installed so that our vehicles can come in and out of there safely year round. And other than that, as long as they don't occupy the homes in that 125, he had also stated that lupine and honeysuckle will be paved, and as long as the equipment is there, that's when they planned on taking the roadway all the way up. So that was in that 2 to 3 month or 3 to 5 month period that he spoke of. So I am aware of all that. Again, I didn't make any comments or promises to it other than wait until I find out direction from the council on that, because the safety of those citizens is a high concern in that wildland threat. And also with the judgment coming from the railroad crossing, I don't know where that's going to stand also. So my biggest concern is the fire code the fire code access for those people to get in and out of, and us to be able to provide safety. Right now, with the Brickyard Road entrance versus the Foothill Boulevard entrance, our time frame for responses is 1 minute and 50 seconds difference. So, you add traffic to that going up Brickyard Road, it's only going to increase the amount of time it takes us to get into that subdivision to provide emergency services.
Ken, this is Mayor Ratton. How are you with the occupancy being held off, but the build going on, permits being issued and the building going on?
Well, what I want to make clear in reference to Chief Mackey's comments is we're only talking about going to really 106 homes permitted and occupancy allowed, based on the fact that we have 6 vacant houses that will always be vacant as long as they're held as models. We're not talking crushed rock. We're talking about aggregate base compacted, which would be the same material that would be actually under the asphalt. And we're only talking about that as a solution for about 3 to 4 months, which it would be compacted to 95%. And I want it to coincide with our improvements in unit number 3, as long as we can go ahead and have the concrete poured, the sidewalk, curb, and gutter in unit number 3. We would continue that down Foothill Boulevard. The improvement plans are already done. And then we would produce the aggregate base. And dependent upon if we were closer to doing the intersection, we would asphalt it at that point. If not, and it's ready to be asphalted at unit number 3, we would do that. And then this really conversation becomes mute. We're only talking a matter of a couple of months. Right. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that, just because we want to build houses, if we don't have occupancy past 106, I'm okay with that. What I can't have is missing a building season and not have any inventory. But more importantly, we want to go ahead and make sure that we get the connection made. And, we're not talking about crushed rock down the road to think that that's an emergency road. It would be a weather-tight road. And hopefully what we would be able to do is we would be able to actually coincide the sidewalk, curb, and gutter all the way down Foothill Boulevard and be ready for our lift of asphalt, whether that comes in our improvements of Unit 3 or our improvements of the intersection of 104 and Foothill.
And that is the conversation that he spoke of that we had out at yesterday or 2 days ago out at the site development. So, again, I'm just looking for council's direction because I didn't want to promise anything to them without first getting direction from the council, because this is a little bit beyond what I have the ability to answer upon.
Okay, can I have I want to know your thoughts on the difference between 125 build versus a 100 occupancy. If they're vacant, are you fine with it, or are you not?
The way that I've understood what Thomas has indicated, that if they stayed vacant, I would have no problem, because we're not talking about occupants trying to enter and exit the area, and it also wouldn't conflict with other issues involved, and I wouldn't have to be dealing with the occupants trying to leave.
Right. Okay. That was what my one question was.
Diane, this is Sophie Meyer.
Yes.
I just wanted to throw out there, I know I'm one of those pesky attorneys, but the only concern that we had from our office is that you do have a transportation study that says 100 homes without that road being completed. And if you do authorize and somehow or another somebody ends up occupying more than that 100 homes, if one of the 6 model homes gets occupied along with, the 100 others, and something happens, the city is going to be on the hook for liability, potentially, for things that happened in Santa Rosa and things that happened in Paradise. And if a fire comes through and they can't get out and you've got property damage or you've got loss of life or other things like that, the city could potentially be on the hook for those. So that was only our concern when we talk about this 100 home limit. We understand that we want to be good partners and we want to encourage the development within the city, and we appreciate that. But that's just something that, from city attorney's opinion, is a tight line that you are walking if you're going to give 125 homes, and then just who's monitoring this 106, who is ensuring that we aren't going to go over that limit, and is there any guarantees anywhere of, if something happens, somebody else being liable for it.
Mayor, I'd like to address that. This is Thomas. I just wanted, to make it perfectly clear that we're okay as long as we get the ability to issue the permit to build the 125. And just to reiterate, the city's policy is at final inspection, they go ahead and give us a final inspection, final the house, and they also issue a certificate of occupancy, not only signed by the building inspector, but by Chief Mackey. And I would think that without a certificate of occupancy, no bank will loan on the house. So we wouldn't be able to transfer ownership of the house, and nobody would be able to move in because there's no certificate of occupancy. So really what we're talking about is going to 106 homes. Our 6 models will actually be vacant, so the city would never be over 100 homes being occupied. We would have the ability to go ahead and build out the other homes, but not the ability to acquire a certificate of occupancy. And at that point, you would have your road. And you wouldn't assign me a certificate of occupancy until you had your road and your interchange. So I don't know what else to say, but who can keep track of it? I mean, the city they issue the permit, which allows us to build our house and have inspections during the building period, but they also go ahead and issue the final inspection along with the certificate of occupancy. If we know we're even getting close, that means we've had issues at Caltrans or something outside our scope. Otherwise, it would be done.
Like I said, I'm one of those pesky attorneys, and it's just my job to point those things out to the city. So you've got our opinion, and you can make a decision based on everything that's been said tonight.
Hello, this is Dominic Gatlin again. I appreciate what the attorney's saying, but 106 homes is not 106 occupied homes. It's still only 100 because 6 of them are models. I think with all the concessions that is being made, I'll stand by my comments earlier. I'm okay with doing the 125 as long as there's no certificate of occupancy given to anything over 100 occupied homes. Thank you.
Councilman Epperson, just like Thomas, to clarify, so you're saying that you're going to put in curb and gutter all the way to 104, that's what I understand, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ken Mackey here again, and I do want to emphasize I don't want to lose this opportunity to not get the road put in right now, because if anything does happen economically wise, we don't want to lose that opportunity we have right now. So I'm kind of mixed feelings on both, on the public safety side, but also on the long-term public safety side to assure that road gets in.
Okay, so we have, what am I supposed to do with this? Are we making a resolution here? Is that correct?
You are providing direction to staff on this, and the next item, council packet, will be the resolution.
Okay. It sounds to me like we have a consensus of opinion that we are okay with the 125 permits being pulled and buildings built, but only 100 may be occupied before the road goes through. So if that's that's my understanding of what I'm hearing. If I can get a voice call that is what you all are hearing as well.
Just to clarify, Councilman Epperson here, would that be 131 permits total, being that 6 are model homes? Is that, to clarify?
My understanding was it's 125 total, and 106 are completed, but only 100 are occupied.
Okay.
This is Dominic Allen. I agree with that.
Dan?
I agree.
Tom?
I agree. Again, as long as it's understood that emergency road is going to be in, as part of it, that's fine.
I agree with your comment.
And I agree with that as well. I agree that with Tom strongly that road does need to be completed, and it must be usable in all seasons for this to also go through. So that would be my direction. I guess that's our direction to staff.
Okay, Madam Mayor, would you mind if I summarize that, because I've been writing notes?
Yes, go right ahead.
So what the council's directed is that up to 125 building permits total within the overall wildflower development can be issued, but no more than 106 certificates of occupancy, which shall be comprised of 100 occupied homes and 6 model homes, shall be issued until the Foothill Boulevard and State Route 104 improvements are built and fully operational, and that Foothill shall be improved in the interim to include curb gutter and rock to provide an all-weather emergency access road, as well as an emergency gate at State Route 104. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, now moving on to item number 6. Adoption of Resolution 2020-10, approving the final map for Wildflower Unit 3. Get that.
Madam Mayor, what's that?
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor and council members, this is kind of a continuation of what we just discussed, but the developer has submitted the final improvement plans and the map for Wildflower Unit 3. Those have been checked and found to be in conformance with the city standards, and the plans and the final map are actually ready to be approved. Honestly, part of the decision was, or part of this overall development agreement, subdivision improvement agreement, was contingent upon what was decided on the last item. But Wildflower Unit 3 is proposing 92 single-family residential homes, has a number of public easements and public facility easements and road rights-of-way shown on the map. And those would be proposed to be dedicated to the city. But as we have done in the past, if if the council elects to approve the final map, the road right-of-way easements would not be accepted at this time until the improvements have been fully installed to the city's satisfaction. So what it would mean if you approve this item is that we would go ahead and sign the improvement plans associated with Unit 3, as well as we would approve the final map. The one thing that the Government Code and Subdivision Map Act does require is that a subdivision improvement agreement and surety be entered into. And we have prepared that and attached it to the staff report. But I will say there are some lines in there that have to be completed, as well as some verbiage specifically in section 26 of that agreement, which is found on page 8 of the agreement, specifically in sections A and B of that will have to reflect, it'll have to be changed and reflected what was decided on the last item. What staff is recommending is that if the council is comfortable with the modifications that were just given, we can reflect those in item 26 of the subdivision improvement agreement, and contingent upon staff and the city attorney's okay of the language within there, the agreement, the subdivision improvement agreement, would be in the proper form. The one thing that is a little bit of an issue, and I am going to ask Thomas Borge to comment on this, but given the very recent developments of the coronavirus, one issue that may come up with this is with respect to bonding. Typically, in subdivision improvement agreements, the subdivider provides bonds as a performance bond, a labor and material bond, and a monument bond, and a maintenance bond that are posted with the development when the subdivision improvement agreement is executed, as well as when the final map is recorded. My understanding in talking with Thomas is that he will have the capability of bonding all of the improvements that are contained within Unit 3 and Foothill Boulevard, but he will not have ability to bond for the State Route 104 improvements until such time that Caltrans has completely finished and approved the plans, as well as some of the improvements have been installed within the Unit 3 development. Is that correct, Thomas, the way I explained that?
Yes, that's correct. Actually, the bonding market right now, with our current crisis situation, they give us 3 ways to value property that we use as collateral, and they take 80% of that minus what you actually owe on it. I have a subdivision of 19 homes that were completed about 10 years ago in the city of Folsom. There's 19 units there. They're worth about $500,000 as a comparable sale. They use 3 approaches: a comparable, where they compare houses that are selling in the general area for what that's worth; the cost approach, which goes ahead and talks about building and so forth and so on; and the last would be a cash flow analysis approach that would be used for either an investment property or rental property, which is what they all are, is rental properties. Well, the state of California came out and it released some statistics about the current situation and about people losing jobs and banning evictions and unlawful detainer actions in the county and the city. And they estimated that 50% of people renting would not pay their rent. So the bonding company now takes the lowest of those 3 approaches, and really our $9 million or $9.5 million investment, which we owe $2 million on, and believe that we had $6.5 million, 80% of that is bonding capacity, they took to 50%. So that's a problem. And really the situation comes down to when we get the bonding capacity and we're done with the unit number 3 improvements and it gets accepted by the city, I would be just as happy to go ahead and take we're looking at a bonding capacity for the unit 3 improvements alone for the city of $1.66 million and about $584,000 for the AWA. So about $2.1 million in bonds, but that would really be irrelevant down the road based on the fact that those improvements will be done. And if we do go ahead and put our sidewalk, curb and gutter, and put our AB down on Foothill, that would actually come off the bonding amount anyway. And before we get to 125 houses, we would be at a situation where the improvements would already be going in, and maybe a cash instrument would be easier, and utilize some of those funds to go ahead and make sure we have the ability to complete the road. That's really what the add-on for not missing our building season this year, and staying in an affordable housing market to go ahead and make the whole project work, because we're looking at about $2.5 million to do the connection, another $750,000 to do the foothill improvements, and another $2.1 million to do our unit number 3 improvements. So a large investment in the community for sure.
All right, Thomas, thanks for that. So what I believe we're proposing to do with this item is, if the council finds it acceptable to approve the final map, then what staff will do, we'll modify item 26 in the subdivision improvement agreement to reflect that we'll allow up to 125 building permits total within the wildflower development to be issued, with certificates of occupancy only issued for a maximum of 106 units until such time that the improvements to Foothill Boulevard and State Route 104 intersection are improved and fully operational. And the bonds for State Route 104 intersection will need to be posted prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy beyond 106 homes, which is reflective of the decisions that I understand the council directed with the last item.
Yes, but I also wanted to be clear that I wanted to be clear that 6 homes are for are not to be occupied, that they are only for models.
Okay, we will include that the 106 is defined as 100 units of occupied homes and 6 units of models.
Right, because I think that keeps us safe from what Sophie is talking about.
Okay.
We are within the 100 homes of the study. Am I correct in that, Sophia?
I think it makes you have a much stronger legal standpoint if something goes wrong, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I will entertain a resolution. Or a motion, excuse me.
I don't know that we've had public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to do public comment. Sorry. Are we finished with council discussion?
You already had public comment. Larry Rhodes made a comment already.
Oh, Larry Rhodes made a comment. We did. That's right. We're down to staff comment. Okay, so now I will entertain a motion.
Councilman Reed here. I move that we accept resolution number 2020-10.
I'll second it.
And do we want to include that with the changes that were indicated?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes. The necessary changes to item number 26 would be included in that motion.
I'll have a second.
Councilman Epperson, I'll second. There you go. Or Don McAllen.
We have a first and a second and a third. Let's do a vote. We'll start with Councilmember Atlan.
Aye.
Mr. Epperson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
And Mayor Ratten says aye. Okay, we have approved that with the additions. Moving on, number 6.
Madam Mayor, this is John Wanger. I am going to go ahead and drop off the call at this point because the remainder items do not involve me, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Alrighty.
Is the fire chief also allowed to get off?
Unless you have something to discuss about the Accra and the floating brush aerator, you're excused.
Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate your night. Have a good, be safe and take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. Moving on to number 7, approval of agreement between the City of Ione and Amador County Recreation for operation of the Ione swimming pool.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council. What you have before you is the draft contract, yearly contract for the ACRA to operate the Ione swimming pool, and along with it, the proposed fees for, excuse me, for the coming year. This contract is pretty much the same as last year's contract that you approved. Even the amount not to exceed is the same. I will say that with the coronavirus and the issues, I'm not sure whether or not there's going to be a swim season. That's still kind of all up in the air in terms of what all happens with this. But we do want to have the contract in place so that we are able to move forward, if we're able to move forward.
Yeah. Okay, this contract has a start. Does it have a start and end date on it? Yes.
Well, this is a annual contract, so yeah, it basically ends every year. It starts pretty much in if I remember, in May and ends at the end of the swim season, which is September.
So do we need to put any kind of caveat in here that if we are still sheltering in place come July 1, that the duration of this contract will be less and therefore the cost will be less?
Well, if the system is not operating, we're not going to be having costs because they're not going to be having lifeguards. They're not going to be opening the system. Acura would pretty much be shut down. So we're not going to incur costs. This only happens when the pool opens, if it opens.
So we are not going to do. I thought this contract basically said we handed them money for the duration of the swim season of $20,000, and that would cover the pool.
No. What they do is they take the fees that are collected to help cover the cost, and anything that's short, we provide them up to cover their costs up to the amount of $20,000.
Okay, so my point stands again. If the swim season is pushed back by, till July 15th, they are probably not going to hit that 20,000. So are we going to end up supplementing that regardless? Are we giving them 20,000 regardless? Is that?
No.
Diane, there's a payment section that says we pay them based on invoices. So they have to invoice us for the amount, and we don't pay anything over $20,000. But if they don't invoice us for that amount, we don't pay that amount.
Okay, thank you.
And again, part of this is based upon revenues generated by the swimming program, the people who are coming in to take swim lessons, the people who are doing the day swimming. That's where the primarily revenue comes from. Anything that's not made or cost over and above what they're able to get, that's where the invoices come in. So if nothing starts until July, there's no costs associated with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I jumped in on all of you guys. Any other counselor comment?
This is Rhodes here. Maybe at this time, I brought this up a couple of times, that for probably 2 years had actually a local contract does Olympic pools, pool pools, gyms, whatnot, private. And he wanted to get in a contract with us. It'd be way cheaper for him to do it than having our guys up. And I think our guys would appreciate the word so they could do other things. So I'd like someone to maybe contact that person again if they're still interested in doing it, because this guy's a top-notch guy and he'd do it way cheaper than what we do, just as far as the maintenance, not the lifeguard and all that, but as far as checking it every day for the pH and all that stuff. And he lives here right in town. He drives through here all the time anyhow. I'd like someone to maybe pursue that if I can.
Okay, if you give me the name, I'll do that. That's not a problem.
Okay, it's a Viking Pool Jake Sands, but I'll get you the information.
Yeah, you're breaking up. I got Viking and I think Jake.
Viking Pools, Jake Sands, and I'll give you his contact info.
Okay.
It's Councilman Reed here. Page 1, it's just kind of a background summary, but and I know this is the same as it was before, but I just want to make sure. The very last thing on that page says be responsible for daily chlorine and pH testing. So they're not responsible for, if they find the chlorine level or the pH off, they're not responsible for correcting that issue.
No, we take care of that.
Correct?
Right,
Okay.
yeah, we take care of that.
Any other council discussion?
I'll just maybe follow up on a little bit because I know about pools. There's actually a system set down there that automatically does that, but it's had issues because no one knows how to maintain it. But that's one thing that a professional pool guy would do, is make sure all that equipment is working, and it actually monitors throughout. You can record it where it automatically does it. Still, a person would come down there once a day and check it, but it would basically run itself. So, but that part of the system has been mothballed because no one knows how to fix the thing. So, anyhow.
Yeah, and I do know that lifeguards, if this is Diane Ratton, I do know that the lifeguards do check the chlorine level and the pH level on a daily basis to ensure that the water is safe for swimmers before they open it.
Let's read again. Somebody remind me, it seems I'm recalling a conversation either last year or the year before. Did we find a discrepancy in what was being charged to use the facilities at our pool as opposed to other places in the county at one time? And was that corrected if I'm
No, there wasn't. Right? There wasn't a discrepancy. What there was last year there was a motion by council to basically charge $1 less in Ione than at the other communities that ACRA was operating.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember exactly what it was.
And from ACRA standpoint, that was a nightmare.
Any further council discussion? I will open it up. Seeing none, open it up to public comment. Seeing no public comment, I'll close public comment. Any further council discussion?
Councilman Epperson, I'll make a motion that we approve the ACRA contract to run and operate the swimming pool for this current year, 2020.
Reed, seconds.
I have a first and a second. Let's get a vote. Councilmember Atlan?
Aye.
Councilmember Epperson?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Rhodes?
Aye.
Mayor Ratton is an aye. Motion carried. Moving on.
Yes,
item number 8.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council. You'll recall back in February, at the February 18th City Council meeting, City Council tabled a decision to purchase a new 7.5 horsepower ECS House Industries floating aerator brush, and to review the options for rebuilding the unit. As was stated in the staff report back then, the city currently utilizes 5 of the floating brush aerators at the wastewater treatment plant. 4 of them were purchased and installed sometime before 2004. The last unit was purchased and installed in 2004. On March 5th of 2020, members of the wastewater committee had the opportunity to inspect the non-operative brush aerator and looked at the other units that would need to be repaired or replaced sometime in the near future. At the wastewater committee meeting that was held on March 11th, the committee's recommendation to council would be to purchase a new 7.5C ECS House Industries floating brush aerator and to replace the unit that has failed, and to purchase the parts to totally rebuild a second unit that is showing signs of failure. The committee also asked staff to budget funds to replace a floating brush aerator every year until all 5 units are of the latest design. The new floating brush aerators have a sealed drive train enclosure system designed to prevent water from infiltrating the drive system. You have the information related to the purchase of a new unit and the cost to purchase the parts to rebuild the unit. The rebuilt unit the parts to rebuild the unit is about $9,425.46. The cost to purchase new is $29,932.74. The total amount, if approved, would be $39,358.20. I know Councilor Ratton and Mayor Ratton and Councilor Epperson were the committee members. So if you have comments, please feel free to provide them at this time.
I did go out and take a look at them. I went through the return on investment for what we have to fix the old one that is actually completely failed versus purchasing new for that one. The one that we're looking to replace the parts for is significantly less debilitated and can be refurbished for a much cheaper price. And the difference between the two types of aerators at this point is significant for long-term use. So I'm absolutely recommending that we go ahead and replace the failed one and repair the one that can be repaired at this point, and then look to replace all of them over a period of time. If we could do it once a year, great. If it has to go out a couple of years, so be it.
Councilman Epperson, Wastewater Committee. I agree. Thanks, Diane.
Councilman Bratland, thank you, Wastewater Committee. I'm happy to take your recommendations. Thank you.
This is Rhodes. I'm the one that brought this up before. This is way too expensive. I believe it should be rebuilt. The seals in them, the only reason water gets in them is because they're not being maintained properly. These gearboxes are actually designed submersible, except for the top of them. There's a ton of conveyor belts in the county that actually run in water. Those are submerged in water, and they last. I think we need to look into getting someone that knows how to maintain the things. These things should last 50 years, no problem. And there was a discussion about the stainless steel rotors. Well, stainless steel rotors are fine and dandy. They're very expensive. The only reason you need them is for very basic water of a pH of like maybe 8 and up, maybe 9, or very acidic water where it's 1 or 2. Our water out pH is basic water out of 7. But it makes absolutely no sense to have stainless steel rotors on these things. It's a waste of money, in my opinion.
Any further council discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to public comment. Hearing no public comment, I'll close public comment and I will entertain a motion. From somebody.
This is Dominic, and I'll make the motion to replace the float and brush aerators per the wastewater committee's recommendations.
Do we have a second?
No? Okay.
I'll second. Reed.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Councilmember Atlan, your vote?
Aye. Aye.
Councilmember Epperson?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Rhodes?
No.
Mayor Ratten is a yes. Motion carried. Moving on, we are working on, okay, this would be the new agenda item.
Correct. This is Resolution 2020-11, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Ione adopting the Cal OES 130 designation applicant agent resolution for non-state agencies related to the local emergency associated with COVID-19. As council will recall, in March, we adopted a emergency declaration related to the COVID virus to be consistent with the Amador County and the state of California. As part of the emergency operations system in terms of being able to get reimbursed for costs associated with dealing with the COVID-19 emergency, the state requires that non-state agencies provide them with the resolution that's attached to page 2, designating the applicant agency's resolution for non-state agencies. Basically what it says is the City of Ione identifies John Hankin, City Manager, as their authorized agents to execute for the City of Ione for the work that's being done associated to obtaining grants, to signing off on FEMA permits. We did this back in 2016, 2017, when we had the floods. And again, these documents are good for up to 3 years. We're doing this again because the last one we did pretty much expired. Part of the reason why, or I should say the reason why this was put on as an emergency item is the state of California wants to have these documents in by April 17th, and there isn't another council meeting between now and then.
Council questions? Seeing none, I'll close.
Me.
Oh, sorry, Dominic, go ahead.
I said none for me.
Okay. I'm going to open up public comment. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And we'll look for a motion.
This is Councilman Epperson. I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2020-11, the Cal OES COVID-19 response.
First, do we have a second?
Reed seconds.
We have a first and a second. We'll go for the vote. Councilmember Atlan?
Aye.
Councilmember Epperson?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Rhodes? Aye. Mayor Ratten is a yes. Motion carried. Moving on to city manager reports.
Yes, a number of things to kind of discuss. First one is the letter to Governor Newsom. Is Janice there on the line? Do you guys have copies of this letter?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay. We put together a draft letter, had the mayor sign it, and we sent it out on March 18th. Normally, we would bring the letter back to you so you could review. and basically approve it. However, I was getting some phone calls from the Department of General Services that was basically saying Governor Newsom was really kind of pushing the state to move forward and look at Preston seriously for a homeless shelter. And that just is not in the best interest of the city of Ione at all. And again, with all the coronavirus stuff that was starting to come out at the time, we wanted to make sure that we absolutely let the governor know that our position, that we were not going to be moving forward on this, and we thought it was a bad idea. My understanding, and Janice, you can confirm this, is this letter was also requested by Amador County, and they were going to submit a letter to the state that basically said the same thing that we did. Am I right on that, Janice?
I did send them a copy. I don't know if they're writing the same thing we did.
Well, but it was pretty much based upon the same in terms of, there wasn't the services for the homeless people, and the cost of Preston was going to be astronomical.
I don't know what was in.
Okay. Oh.
This is Stacey Rhodes here. I'm John. I was with you at that county meeting.
You're not on, Stacy. We can't hear you.
This is Stacey Rhodes here, John. I was with you at the county meeting when this was being discussed, and if I remember correctly, they just kind of wanted to coordinate with you to make sure which is the same, that the county would back you, or we could have kind of the same shared, I guess you would call it. Right. So that's kind of what I got. It's just they wanted to make sure that we're both on the same page, and that the county was backing what we wanted, and we were backing what the county wanted. That's what I recall.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Other things, sewer billing statements. You got an email from me that with a notice that we're putting out on Facebook, that we have put out on Facebook, we have put out on our website, and we are getting it into Nextdoor Ione because of the coronavirus stuff, and the ladies who helped put the utility bill packets together, because of the shelter at home, they're not coming in, so we're not going to be mailing out statements this month. The public can access their utility bills by using expresspay.com. We have approximately about 30 to 35% of the wastewater payers who access their utility bills through the online process already. And again, because we are, our homeowner sewer bills are $40.70 per month. It's pretty clear in terms of what's being owed. Again, we understand the economic difficulties that a lot of people are going through. So, if they're late, we're not going to be charging late fees for March and for April. Hopefully this stuff all gets resolved, and the economy starts moving up again in May and June. However, if we need to not charge late fees or penalties back then, we will address that at that time. Like I said, we just want to kind of let people know that the bills are out. We understand the hardships, and we will see kind of what happens. Now, one of the things that I'm anticipating that we're going to have less people paying. One of the things that I'm working with the Cal OES on is the loss of revenue that we may face in terms of people not being able to pay bills. Is that a reimbursable cost under the emergency declaration? I have a webinar tomorrow with OES on that particular issue related to finances. So as I know more about that, I will let you know more. The reports that were due to the Regional Water Quality and Control Board related to the notice of violation, the timeline was extended a month. So the report that was due in April is now due in May, and the reports that were due in May are now due in June. So we have a little bit more time to work on that. Cal Transportation Commission has adopted the active transportation program rules at their March meeting, but because of the coronavirus issues, they will be meeting to discuss extending the time frame for grant applications and for us, that's the Safe Route to Schools. We'll know more about whatever extensions that they're going to be granted. We should know that by Friday. There's a webinar that will be from the talking about this on I believe it's Thursday. The per capita grant park grant program, that application is on hold, as you'll recall. That's the one application that we're looking for to do the part of the train, the depot park. So like I said, that's on hold. That's a little bit unfortunate. I'm hoping that comes around real soon. I did get notification from the state related to the SB2. That's the planning grant that we submitted a while ago, I believe in November. We are going to be funded, and I'm waiting to get the formal letter. Once that's done, then there's the paperwork process that needs to get back to them. But again, we are funded for that, so that'll be moving forward. Also, because of basically the economic situation where a lot of people are having difficulties, we're starting to receive more and more requests from homeowners who have the first-time homebuyers program or the housing rehabilitation program loans with us that are talking about refinancing their first mortgage and are requesting that the city subordinate the lien for the second. I talked to the mayor, and she's assigned a ad hoc committee to work with me. And I have one application that's a housing rehabilitation, and I've talked to two other banks who represent people in the community who have the first-time home buyers loan program that want to talk about that too, and they'll be sending me information as well. So again, I mean, we're starting to, talk a little bit more with people who are feeling the financial stress of the economic situation, and we're going to probably be hearing from more people who have loans with us, whether it be the first-time home buyer program or the housing rehabilitation. Again, wanting to refinance, maybe pull some equity out of their home to cover medical costs, what have you. We'll deal with those on a individual basis as they come in. That's kind of what I have for now.
Do we have to do public comment on this? No. We don't have to do public comment on this, right, Sophie?
Correct.
Thank you. City Council committee reports?
None from me.
None for me.
None for me.
Nothing from Reed.
Nothing from Rhodes.
Okay. Future agenda items?
Nothing from
Councilman Epperson here. Councilman Epperson here. I wanted to just second Councilman Rhodes' thought on the pool maintenance contract. Take a look at that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
This is Rhodes here. This is probably the perfect time of the year for someone to start actually talking to Mule Creek, CAL FIRE, whomever, about the cleaning of the creek. So it gives them a long,
okay,
at least put the bug in their ear for them.
Yeah. We have started that.
Great.
Oh, this is John. We started that.
Thank you, John. Any other agenda items? Nope. I'm seeing none. We're going to move on.
This is Reed.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was muted. And I asked a good question. This is not a future agenda item, but I'm curious if we have a creek committee yet.
John, do we have the...
I'm going to have to refer to Janice whether or not she has applications in yet.
As far as I know, we received one.
One?
The deadline
Wow.
was March 2nd.
Okay, one. We need more to the Creek Committee. Well, it seems that we might have to redo that.
Re-advertise.
Yeah.
This is Rhodes here. Can I put that on Facebook? Is that legal? That Ione is looking? Because I'm sure you'll get 300 people if you do it that way. If that's a proper way to do this.
Council members, you can have, we could direct Sophia, or not Sophia, sorry, we could direct Mary Wren to do that. She maintains the city's Facebook page. That'd probably be a good place, or the neighborhood app too might be a good place to advertise as well.
If she gets it out on the city Facebook page, then a lot of us can just forward it from there and share it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's public, so like I said, it's public information. So let people know who you think could be beneficial or would be beneficial to the committee. Not a problem.
Okay. Facebook sounds kind of stupid, but it works great for stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We don't have any closed session, so we're looking to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn. Hey, I got that first.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it if Tom hasn't.
Yeah.
Tom hasn't. And we don't need a voice call on that. Can we all just say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
It's been great. Not ideal. Not ideal.
Good meeting, guys.
Good night, everybody.